Trump conspired to, quote, overturn the legitimate results of the 2020 presidential election by using knowingly false claims of election fraud to obstruct the government function by which those results are collected, counted, and certified, end quote. I mean, it can't be clearer than that, even using legalistic language. I mean, is there something about that you don't understand? That I don't understand? Come on. And that indictment focuses on Trump's involvement in that scheme to come up with all these fake election certificates and electors in various places around the country. That's what the case in Arizona is all about, for which all these people were indicted last night or yesterday. This is it. Trump says he was merely expressing his concerns, which were not based on any evidence, that the election was plagued with fraud. And so he pleaded not guilty to the federal charges. When you know, and I know, and we all know, that this orange Nazi son of a bitch was involved up to his eyeballs in every single thing that has transpired since 2016. Every lie and deception and fraud against the United States, everything. You know it's true. I know it's true. Millions of us know it's true. The problem is there are millions of people that the orange bastard has convinced that it's not true, that it's all something inspired by Joe Biden to get him, to come out and get him. Whew. Now, a bunch of these so-called J6 defendants who have been sentenced to prison or jail or confinement or probation, so many of them have acknowledged that they were duped and lied to and manipulated by Trump. Or some of their attorneys have admitted in court that these defendants lacked the thinking skills to recognize the lies about the 2020 election for what they were. In other words, some of these defendants have gone to court who've charged with criminal activity and have said, well, I'm too fucking stupid to know. I mean, I didn't know. I thought if Mr. Trump told me to attack the Capitol and overthrow the government, that was okay. Yeah. People in this country, I turns my stomach to admit this. I don't understand it. But we have millions, tens of millions of citizens in this country to whom that would be a legitimate argument. Well, I didn't know. What do I know? I thought if Trump told me to go burn down the Capitol, it was okay. I mean, I don't know shit. That's what some of their arguments have been. And to stand in open court and admit that you're a dumb son of a bitch as well as being ignorant of the laws of your own country, and to do so with no shame, just with defiance, like, well, I did what the president told me to do. And the attorneys have insisted that these people who make that claim, and Trump, that they sincerely believed the election was stolen. Trump knew goddamn good and well the election wasn't stolen. If there was a stolen election, it was the 2016 election when he stole it from Hillary Clinton, who got 3 million more popular votes than he did. But she lost the presidency regardless because of these racist, arrogant, elitist white man rules that were put into place called the Electoral College. Jack Smith, special prosecutor, has argued in court papers in goddamn near everything that the man has filed that Trump has no immunity and that the case should go to trial immediately. Whether or not his conduct at the time involved official acts. Who the fuck, what is it, official and not official? I mean, give me a break. If you break the law, bitch, you're breaking the law, right, Donnie? Well, there's official breaking the law and unofficial breaking the law. This is part of where my enraged frustration comes from, gentle listener. Can you imagine if you, because I think about this about me, if you were charged with a fairly serious crime, say armed robbery, and you got into court, and I know this is a bullshit example, but I'm going to use it anyway. You got into court and you tried to convince a judge or a jury or both that you were acting officially in your armed robbery, and therefore you're immune. And officially how? Well, you're part of you're on the board, you're on the local school board. So when you went in to rob the bank, commit armed robbery, you were only doing so to get money to improve the physical appearance of some of the schools under your jurisdiction. So therefore, your bank robbery was an official act, right? How long would it take to have that argument set on fire by the judge? Say, get the fuck out of here with that kind of garbage. You're losing your credibility. That's what Judge Merchan said to one of Trump's attorneys the other day. You're losing your credibility in here. But that's what Trump is trying to do. That's what his lawyers are doing. My act in attempting to overthrow the government was an official act. Therefore, I'm immune. Now, Trump's slimy lawyers cite, among other things, a Supreme Court ruling from the 80s that said presidents are immune from civil suits when the alleged conduct falls within what they're calling now the outer perimeter of their official duties. And that case has never been applied in the criminal context. This is not a civil case against this rancid Nazi son of a bitch. This is a criminal case. And it's probably the most severe criminal case that can be levied against somebody as far as the politics of it are concerned. They tried to overthrow the government. Now, I realize if somebody comes out and murders my child or your child, that to us is the most extreme thing we could ever deal with. But when you look at it on a national level, that treason, the attempt to destroy the government of the United States, is there a more serious crime than that? And when the evidence is such that grand jury after grand jury hands up indictments and says the evidence is pronounced enough and valid enough that, yes, we think this should go to trial. And then leave it up to a jury. Grand jury indictment is not a conviction. It's an indictment. It's like an impeachment. That's all. Now, we've indicted the son of a bitch. Take it to court. Let him present his defense while we present our prosecution. And let's see what happens. But not for Trump. And one of the key issues that this court heard today, and it hasn't been resolved yet, is whether any of Trump's actions mentioned in the indictment were official acts. Official acts conspiring to overthrow an official or destroy an official proceeding, counting the electoral votes of a presidential election. That hasn't been determined whether or not what Trump tried to do was an official act, even though in the moment he was still president. Is that an official act to commit that kind of a crime? Oh, man. And even if some of the conduct that this orange bastard is accused of participating in, even if some of it is considered off limits, it would not necessarily mean that any of the charges against the son of a bitch should be dismissed. They are still criminal acts. Well, they were up until this morning. So the Supreme Court now has a bunch of options in deciding this particular case. And both sides accepting that the ruling might not completely resolve the immunity issue. I mean, the Jack Smith's office has already conceded that, but that's not what they're looking for. One scenario possible here is that the justices could reject the Orange Bastard's broadest arguments that he is immune from everything. He's like King George. And remand the case back to Judge Chutkan to resolve whether any of the conduct in question involved official acts. And if that's what they decide, then that gives Trump the second thing that he would expect. The first thing he expects is to be found completely immune from every kind of behavior because he's Donald Trump. And his entire useless, worthless shithole life, he's gotten away with that. So the ideal situation for him, of course, is I have immunity. Thank you, Supreme Court. The second best thing would be to send it back to Chutkan, which is probably what they're going to do, the more I think about it. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.